Good day, everyone. Welcome to People and Organization Week 4. This course is about people and organization. My name is Olumuyiwa Abiodun. We are going to be going through the topic, change in organization. So this course, BMM 4153 semester 2, this is the lecture schedule, and we are here in week 4, change in organizations. The module outcome for this course, People and Organization, is to describe the various components related to organizational behavior, discuss the key theories and concepts related to organizational behavior and its dynamics, review your ability to work within a team, reflecting on your personal skills and areas of development. So in this course, we are going to be considering these learning outcomes, understanding the theories and concepts of organizational behavior, managing people, managing human behavior in the organizational context, and how organizations can get the best from people. So in today's class, the learning objectives are understanding critically and evaluating the different types of change, critically assessing change theories and models, understanding and critically evaluating organizational and individual sources of resistance, and how to manage resistance to change. The content for today's class is change. Define change, discuss the 6 types of change, evaluate the change theories, such as Lewin's process model, John Cotter's change theory, and action research. Managing resistance is also part of the content of today's class. So at the end of this class, you'll be able to understand how to manage change in an organizational setting. A lot of us has gone through change, and this class is about looking how to handle metamorphosis, transformations, evolutions. And in an organizational context, we need to understand as business managers how to manage change. So the first thing we must understand is that the only constant thing in life is change. Change is very important because even as human beings, we change, we grow, that is change. We evolve, that is change, that is progress. So change is the only constant thing. And as a business student that wants to become a business manager someday, you must understand how organizations can adapt to change. You must be flexible and adaptive to change. And this course today, this topic today, will help you look into how you can adapt to change as a student and as a manager, and to help you understand steps in change management through the change management theories. So in today's class, we are focusing on how organizations, managers, employees can manage change. So let's define change and organizational change. According to the Oxford Dictionary, change can be defined as moving from one state to another state. So it can mean to change is to make a material difference so that the thing is distinctly different from what it was before. So in the context of organizations, change refers to the actions in which a company or a business alters major components of its organization, such as the culture, such as the underlying technologies or infrastructure, or its operations or internal processes. This can be said as an organizational change. Organizational change management, therefore, is the process of guiding organizational change to successful resolution. So it's a process of guiding change to ensure that it becomes what it's supposed to be. If there is no proper guidance and direction in change management, then there will be issues. The change might not be achieved. So organizational change management is a critical part of people and organization. And that is why we are learning it today. So we can see here, there are 3 major phases in the change management process, talking about preparation, implementation, and follow-through. This is according to Deckwall and Vermock, 2003. There are many words that are synonymous to change. For example, we could talk about transformation. We could talk about development. We could talk about metamorphosis. We could talk about transmutation. We could talk about evolution. Change management and change are different words that relate to how organizations move from one state to another state. Okay? Innovation is also a key word. Revolution is another keyword. So transitioning, it's a keyword. Examples of major changes that we have seen in the business world is when COVID-19 happened, and then a lot of organizations needed to move from a physical work setting to a virtual work setting. That was a major change, a technological change, an infrastructural change. So in this class, we're going to be looking at how change can be observed and how change can be effectively managed. So first thing we need to think about, why do organizations need to change? What is behind the elements of change? A quick answer to that is that they need to change because they need to respond to organizational, micro, and macro environmental needs. The business environment is always changing. The business environment is always evolving. So because of that, we need to embrace change. You can be changes from the internal setting, which is the organization, maybe changing the department, changing the people, changing the leadership. That is an internal change. Or when you talk about the micro environment, maybe in the industry, change from the suppliers, from the distributors, change in even changing customer behavior. Organizations need to change. They need to adapt to what is going on in the business environment. So one of the major reasons why we are focused on change, or why we need to understand change and change management in an organizational setting, is to be able to respond effectively and efficiently to the organizational micro and macro environmental needs. Now we'll look at what are the different types of change. The different types of change. Several types of change can be seen in the workplace or in the organization. We have incremental, transformational, strategic, organizational, culture, behavioral. These are different kinds of settings of change which can be observed in the workplace. What is incremental change? Incremental change talks about a gradual change. It's a change that takes place small, step by step. It's a change that is expansive, is steady, it's step by step to improve, to advance, to expand. So a good example is maybe we want to improve the efficiency of our workplace, and we include some steps to make it better, add some technology, some systems. That is an incremental change. Then we talk about a transformational change, a change that involves being radical in shape, structure, or in nature of something. You are changing it. So organizational transformation is a radical change. Maybe something like this is a 360 change. Maybe you want to move from a physical structure, a physical workplace, to a fully online delivery system. That is a transformational change. Or you want to improve, modify your products. You want to transform your product lines. A good example of a transformational change is when we're talking about Toyota going from diesel and petrol engine and trying to become an electric vehicle manufacturer. That's a good example of a transformational change. Organizational change deals with structure and infrastructure, maybe changing in the department. It's a change that deals with the functions. It involves identifying the need to consider a formal structure in an organization. Some organizations will change their structure, rearrange their departments. That is change. And as a manager, you must be able to know how to effect that change, how to carry out that change. Change management is very important because when you are setting up a new structure, you need to put things in place. You need to get people on board. As a business student, you need to understand organizational change is very critical. Most organizations rearrange their departments, they rearrange their units, they rearrange their functional organization to be able to meet up with demands in the environment. So that is organizational change. We have cultural change, which deals with the mindset of the organization or the mindset of the people. Okay, it is aimed at changing the existing culture, the existing beliefs, the values, the system, what is important in the organization. Okay, so organizations can change their culture to suit what is going on. A good example of organizational culture that is being changed in today is talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is an organizational culture that embraces everybody in the organizational context in a multicultural setting, different people from different backgrounds working in the same organization. The culture of diversity, the culture of equality, the culture of inclusiveness is part of organizational change that we are seeing in today's world. DEI, the DEI model, is talking about moving organizations to a culture whereby they respect everyone in the workplace. So cultural change is changing the mindset, changing belief, changing the assumptions of people in the workplace, making them more involved in the workplace, making them more inclusive, making them more equal and diverse. That is an example of cultural change. Then we have the strategic change, which can deal with maybe changing the strategic vision or direction of an organization. For example, an organization wants to say, we are no longer producing this kind of product, we no longer want to be in this kind of business, we want to move into another type of business. A good example is the pharmaceutical company GSK, GlaxoSmithKline. They used to make Ribena, the drink, and Lucozade, but they decided that no, we want to focus on only pharmaceutical products, and they had a strategic change whereby they sold off the Lucozade business, they sold off the Ribena business. So these are examples of strategic change. It's an organizational-wide change. It's a change that relates to the organization in terms of their vision, their mission, where they are going, and their future direction. So a strategic change can be maybe an organization pivoting from what they used to do to something else. This is strategic change. Then finally, we talk about behavioral change. Behavioral change is changing the behavior of people. It's quite similar to cultural change, making people to be receptive to change, shaping and modifying the way people carry out their task, the behavior of people coming to the workplace. This is behavioral change. It deals with actions, attitude, personality. That is behavioral change. It's also similar to people change. Now, we will talk about the change theories and the models. The change theories and the models. The change theories and models. For you to do well in this course for the assignment, you need to talk about theories that relate to people and organization. So one of the key theories in people and organization is change theories. And we're going to look at three: Lewin's process model, John Cotter's change theory, and action research theory. The Lewin's model talks about 3 steps in managing change. The first step, unfreezing, where you break down things, and you begin to dissolve things. Okay, unfreezing is making employees understand the importance of change and how their jobs will be affected if the change is done positively. So unfreezing is discarding or decentralizing what is already existing. Then you change, you move things around. There's a movement, moving from the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things. That's move around. Then you talk about refreezing. This is the final stage where you solidify the things that need to be done. So refreezing is like creating new behaviors, ensuring that employees come on board with the new change. The next change theory is John Cotter change theory, 8-step change theory. And here it is a process whereby there must be 8 steps for organizations to follow or managers to follow to enact, to carry out change. We talk about creating a sense of urgency, form a powerful guiding team, develop a vision and a strategy for the change, communicate the change to everybody, empower employees to be involved in the change, to take action in the change, create short-term wins whereby people can see that the change is ongoing, and you consolidate your gains by thinking about what can be done better, and then you make it stick by using culture and organizational development to drive the change. So John Cotter explains change management as a more complex process that can be used in 8 steps. Finally, we talk about the action research change theory, whereby change is a process based on a systematic collection of data and a selection of a change action based on what was analyzed in the data. So we have the diagnosis stage, analysis stage, feedback, action, and evaluation. This model is very useful for organizations that are going through a wide variety of changes, maybe a change in consumer behavior. They need to gather data from the market and analyze that data, get some feedback, and say, okay, maybe our product needs to change, or maybe our services need to change, or our actions need to change, and then take some action towards it, and you evaluate whether that action was useful or not. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are, in this model, the key change theories that we have. 3-step Lewin change model, John Cotter 8-step change theory, and action research theory, following 5 steps. You can use any one of these for your assignment in talking about a topic, a people and organizational topic in relation to an organization. Finally, we move to resistance. A lot of people find out in organizations they struggle to change. There's a struggle. because they feel there's a negative attitude. They feel they might be afraid. They might be not want to change. So there are some sources for which people don't want to change. From the organizational context, they might be threatened by expertise, they might be threatened by power and control, or there might be lack of resources to carry out the change, and people might resist change. From an individual source, there can be fear of the unknown, there can be lack of awareness. Okay, these are elements that can make people not want to change. But as a manager, you have to identify these elements and work around them. You need to find ways of overcoming resistance to change in organizational settings. So successful leaders are those who consider and correctly diagnose resistance to change and deal with that resistance up front. So there are different ways when people don't want to change, maybe they don't want to adapt to the new things that are going on in the organization. You can look at it and say, what can I do? So what are the strategies we can use, or what are the tactics we can use to manage these things? Okay, we could educate. So number one, we could educate them, communicate to them, train them, let them know. Just like John Cotter said, communicate the change, the vision of the change. The vision of the change must be properly communicated. The vision of change must be properly communicated. You must let them know why we are changing. What is the benefit of the change? Also, bring them on board. Bring them on board in participating in the change. Make sure that employees are involved. People get to be more receptive to change when they are involved in the change. So you need to be ensuring that there's proper engagement, involvement in change management. Involve the employees. Let them be part of the change. Seek their opinion in the change. Also, building support and commitment is very critical. Okay, there has to be support from the managers, support from the support from the team heads to guide the employees towards the change. Then we talk about developing positive relationship, the relationship between the supervisor and the followers, the relationship between the supervisor and the subordinate. There must be a positive relationship through motivation, through incentives, through interaction. This can be done properly. Change can be properly managed and resistance can be reduced when there's positive relationship between the top level managers and the lower level managers in enacting a change. Then we talk about implement change fairly. There should be no discrimination in change. The change must be across board. It must be equal. That's why we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. The change must be fair to everyone. The change must consider everyone. The change must involve everyone, okay? And it must not discriminate. It must be something that focuses and favors everyone. Then you talk about selecting people who can accept change. It's very important to have what we call change champions. It's very important to have people that are in the team that will direct the change. Then finally, some cases might need some coercion, whereby you need to push them with some reinforcement theory. So these are different ways in which you can manage change. In this module, we have looked at, in this module today for week 4, we have looked at managing change and how change can be enacted in an organization. We have talked about the different types of change. We have also looked at the theories for change. So as a manager, you must understand how to execute change management. You must understand how to implement change management, and effective change can be done through these tactics as we've mentioned. We have our references that you can consider for your further reading. You can use them also for your assignments, and you can use them to build up your knowledge. Thank you so much. This is week 4, people and organizational model. We talked about change in organization. Thank you.